let's move on now to the next block, because I found this with very great interest, Krystal, which is that I have often thought with Trump that his superpower is just saying what a lot of people think and without any regard for what the Washington establishment or the media will say. Sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes there are things that shouldn't be said. With Trump, though, with Ukraine, he, to my knowledge, is the most prominent former or current U.S. official, former president of the United States, advocating for a negotiated peace in Ukraine. And also, I want you to not only to pay attention to what he says, pay attention to the way that the crowd reacts whenever he says it. Let's take a listen.
We must demand the immediate negotiation of a peaceful end to the war in Ukraine, or we will end up in World War III, and there will be nothing left of our planet, all because stupid people didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. They really don't understand. I rebuilt our military. I rebuilt our nuclear power. They don't understand what they're dealing with, the power of nuclear.
Very interesting. You know, so for me, I'm seeing a lot of like nodding heads there and all of that. And I was like, wow, that is fact. Again, the single most prominent person affiliated in any way with the U.S. government to make any sort of comment like that and to tell the reality of what we are. I also do think it's very noteworthy that Trump, being the only person who says that, will become the flashpoint onto which this debate is then decided, which is part of the reason why I think it's a bad thing, that he's the only person who is saying it.
Yeah.
But I do think that there probably is a political opportunity for somebody out there who wants to say it. It's just that they're all terrified of being branded by the media as like a Russian sympathizer. I mean, look at what they did to Josh Hawley for voting against NATO on Finland and Sweden.
Well, look at what they did to Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I mean,
right. You don't even have to be a fan.
I'm not a big Elon Musk fan.
Yeah.
But the man has done a lot for the Ukrainian cause. I mean, like legit, Starlink has been critical to what they've been able to accomplish. And just by, I mean, it's sort of stupid to have like a Twitter poll about a peace deal, but just by suggesting, hey, maybe we should have a negotiated settlement here, you have former and the current Ukrainian president coming out and slamming him and all kinds of their diplomats and all this stuff just going nuts over this thing. Totally trashed by all sorts of mainstream liberals as well for, and as a Putin's puppet and Russian sympathizer and all of this sort of nonsense. So yeah, I think with Trump, like, obviously this isn't some sort of principled and clear-eyed stance or whatever. The man sniffs out a political opportunity. And we know that's the case because actually, I mean, previously he was, in spite of the like, oh, he's Putin's best buddy and whatever, he was actually very hawkish towards Russia in like the actual policy sense when he was president. The beginning of this war, remember his rhetoric was like insane about the things that he was suggesting that we do, like to like direct U.S. Fighter jets getting directly involved. I mean, all kinds of nonsense that he was floating about this stuff. So he was sort of like testing out, where is the political opportunity here? Where should I land? One day it was suggesting being more hawkish. The next day it was suggesting sort of more like what he's saying here. The fact that he's landed in this place after testing the waters on all kinds of different messaging of what we really need is to force them to the table for a peace deal, I do think says that, he's sensing that there is an unmet desire with the American people for diplomacy. And I don't think he's wrong. And we've covered the polling here from the Quincy Institute and other places that says, like, the mainstream position in American society is not endless weapons shipments with no ends in sight. It's, yeah, we support the Ukrainian cause. We'll continue to support them. But we want to see some real moves towards diplomacy. And don't pretend like you have nothing to say about that when the whole reason that Ukraine is able to, get to this place in the war at all is because of our arms, our training, and our intelligence. Don't sit here and pretend like you have nothing to say about how this conflict comes to a close.
That's also one of my biggest pet peeves. They're like, well, what are the Ukraine? I'm like, listen, Ukraine does not exist as a polity without the United States. Let's all be very, very honest about that. The Ukrainians themselves would tell you that. They're like, no, we wouldn't exist without the defense of the U.S. So, okay, if that is the case, then of course that you have a say. On the Trump thing, I don't want to claim that the man is some great strategic genius because this is always the problem with Trump. On the one hand, he says stuff like that. Does he really mean it? He's also the person who hired John Bolton and Mike Pompeo and recognized Juan Guaido as the president of Venezuela. All right? He's also the person who shipped Javelin missiles to Ukraine when Obama would not ship Javelin missiles to Ukraine out of fear of provoking the Russians. He's the person who, I think they withdrew from whatever the nuclear treaty was under America, the New START treaty, I think it was. So there's two hands to Trump. There's the guy who basically folded to the anti-Russian deep state the entire time, and then there was the guy at the Helsinki conference who was actually in charge. In general, I'm going to go with the deep state. That being said, when he was the president, as president, he says that if he were to be in power, this is the type of deal that he would go to. And on that, there is some evidence, right? He is the person broke long-standing U.S. precedent and met with Kim Jong-un. You say what you want, but after that meeting, they didn't have any high-profile missile launches in the Asia-Pacific. You know, I'm thinking about doing a monologue on this tomorrow, Krystal, but, you know, this is not the only nuclear crisis we have to worry about in Ukraine. Kim Jong-un's been flying off ballistic missiles. The Japanese are freaking out. They're overflying the EEZ. You know, I was basically convinced in 2017, I was like, I honestly think we might be going to war with North Korea. I didn't really see what the off-ramp was because I didn't think it was possible for Trump to basically break the diplomatic consensus and say, no, enough. I'm going to go and meet with Kim Jong-un and try and come to a deal. Ultimately, it didn't work out, and he left office and kind of lost interest, but I still think he should be applauded for doing that. I thought it was a courageous act as an American president. Here's the other one. He did an extremely unpopular thing, according to the American deep state. Trump is the one who negotiated that peace deal with the Taliban. We have to give him credit for that. He did it. It didn't end up withdrawing on the timeline. He supposedly tried his best, all of that. So Trump is torn between who he actually listens to, whether he's paying attention or not. I just think I want to present all sides of who Trump really is. He's unpredictable.
That's exactly right. I mean, in some areas, his foreign policy was like the most hawkish possible.
Right.
Think about the strike on Qasem Soleimani.
Oh, right.
Incredibly dangerous, escalatory, risked war with Iran right then and there. Of course, took us out of the Iranian nuclear agreement. Also, also very escalatory measure that ended up with a hardliner coming to power, and we're still not back in that deal because of everything that has happened there. The Biden administration is partially to blame for that as well. Extremely hawkish and dangerous actions there. Very hawkish towards Russia. And then you have, the meeting with Kim Jong-un. You have the deal making with the Taliban. So yeah, that's why that guy, you can't rely on him to be, interested in diplomacy or peacemaking, because he really is all over the map. I think the best thing you can say about these latest comments is he does have a nose for sniffing out when there's a political opportunity to say something that the mainstream press is completely unwilling to just even entertain, when there is a significant part of the population that wants to hear exactly what he's saying. Because ultimately, even though the media has done a terrible job of laying out the risks, even though the president hasn't come out and said it directly to the American people aren't stupid. They realize that you're messing with a nuclear power here, and that you could very easily end up in World War III. And they also just are asking themselves, like, how much are we, like, what is really at stake for us in the Ukrainian cause? Why aren't we using our leverage to ultimately trying to bring this war to a close? I mean, there just has been no vocal pro-peace movement within the United States. So it's just interesting to see him trying to seize on what he clearly sees as political opportunity.
That's what my takeaway was, which is that I'll never believe a word the man says until it's actually done. But I was like, I do know his real genius is for sniffing out a position that is completely underserved in the market of politics.
Yeah.
So I took away a lot from the fact that he was even willing to go there. And of course, it does reflect at least some of his existing underlying beliefs.
Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.